Hello, everyone, and welcome to our podcast number 5, Inspiring Boys, Empowering Fathers, and Transforming Lives. Today, we'll be talking with a real dad who's had experience in raising sons, and we're going to talk to him about things we talked about in podcast 4, and do they work? Does he have other suggestions? And that's what we're here to talk about, helping dads.
You
So
bet.
we're
Hi there, Linda. Good to see you.
good to see
And
you too, Jim.
all right, I'm a dad, but boy, oh boy, a long time ago for me to be dealing with young sons. So I'm glad we've got a young dad that's going to keep us grounded.
Yeah, that's
So
great. So here's
so
a
so
quick.
our first session here that we've got first slide we have up here talks about what can dads do to help their sons. So yeah, okay, Linda, go for it.
So this is just a quick review of what we talked about in our last podcast. So, and things we'll be asking our dad today about. So, one of the most important things we talked about is having a daily conversation with your son. Ask him what he learned at school that day. And this makes a big difference by as much as 35%, according to the research. Because if you keep pestering him every day, what did you, and eventually he's going to think, oh my goodness, I got to figure out what I'm going to tell dad today. And that helps them pay attention. Setting expectations for your sons and, modeling the behavior, seeing dad read, talking to teachers. And that's what our last podcast was about, talking about with teachers about what's happening with your son. You're the expert on your son. The teacher is not. The teacher is the expert on the program. And should really be a coordination between the teacher and the dad. Anything to add here, Jim?
No, I think this is yeah, I think it's very important for us to deal with that, and I will be intrigued to hear what our dad guest has to say.
A few other things that we talked about. You can get a copy of the curriculum on the Ontario website, and you can see what your son should be learning, and you can talk to the teacher, anytime, do a phone conversation because it's not always easy to get to the school when you're working. Um, But yeah, you can have a phone conversation at any time and say, hey, I know you're working on this unit. How can my son prepare for it? Or how's he doing in that unit? Then you can sort of keep on top of things. It's not easy, but it gives you an idea of what they're supposed to be learning. And then understanding what our podcast is really about is a lot about reading and literacy. So understand your son's reading ability and try and understand what level he's at. Because if he's not reading at the required level, he can't learn the curriculum. It affects everything else. And then he develops a psychological aversion to reading, which is not good because, as we've talked about many times, it has long-term impacts. And the last issue is that they can be misdiagnosed with a learning disability if your son can't read, and uh, maybe nothing wrong with him. He just needs some help learning to read.
And children don't all learn to read at exactly the same time. And of course, children in a class are significantly different ages because all the children in the class, although they may be all quote at the same grade, the fact of the matter is they could be anything up to 12 months apart in terms of their age. 12 months apart at my age doesn't make that much difference, but 12 months uh, for a child in the early primary grades makes quite a bit of difference in terms of uh, their physical development, their mental development. So yeah, it's important to keep an eye on this and hopefully use some of the ideas that are going to be suggested here today.
So then, as we know, many of you are, a dad that doesn't live with your son full time. And so it can be hard to do some of these things, but, we have some suggestions. So, you could do some of these things by phone or by email, depending on how old your child is. But when you call him, you can say, hey, what did you learn in school today? It gets you a starting point in the conversation, find out how he's doing in school, what did he learn? Eventually, a lot of times we all know we've done this as parents, nothing, nothing. And eventually you will get an answer if you persist. Um, You could read your son a story over the phone and then leave the ending hanging. So read him the first chapter or the first few pages and say, okay, now you're gonna have to call me tomorrow for the rest of the story. Um, so that helps because then they're left with part of the story. It helps them use their imagination. Gee, I wonder what's going to happen next. And you can start that as early as the preschool age. And always encourage your son because they don't get encouragement at school um, usually. So, giving him positive feedback is important, really important.
And we talk about successes that people have. It's important that we recognize that for any of us at any activities, we start where we are. And success is moving forward from that point. It's not listing our disabilities or our things we can't do and so on. It's basically saying, I start where I am, and here's the progress I've made. So I think it's important that we recognize that and that we accentuate that and that we, hey, cheer for our successes.
Just a couple more ideas. If you can't call your son, record yourself reading a book and email it to him. Or send it by text or however you have your communication process with your son. Um, Create a storybook with your son, sort of like build a book with dad. You start a story and say, okay, here's an idea, and here's the characters. What do you think will happen next? And then each time you talk to him, you expand the story. Well, Franklin the turtle did this, and when he did that, what happened, and then turn it over to your son. Let him it becomes like a game where he can use his imagination. And as we mentioned, call the teacher and set an example.
Yeah, it's important that uh, you and the teacher both understand that you're working together on this, and uh, so you're not going to belittle the teacher's expertise. At the same time, the teacher has to recognize your expertise, and your biggest expertise is what you know about your son that the teacher doesn't know. So if we can share that back and forth, our sons gain from it. And I'm all for this role model because the bottom line is um, little boys want to be like dad, and if dad spends a bit of time reading, um, it tells little boys that that's what I'm going to be like when I grow up. I'm going to be a reader. I'm going to be a learner. Um, I'm going to do things of that nature. So yeah, very, very good stuff.
So over to you, Jim, to introduce our dad for today.
Yeah, I'm really happy to introduce Emmanuel Mello, and Emmanuel is going to tell us a bit about himself, and he's going to tell us a bit about his sons. And what's critical here is that uh, much of our focus in this session and last session in this session is going to be looking at the younger of Emmanuel's sons. Not that we're negating the older one, but definitely we need to be we need to be focusing on the younger ones, since at a later session we're going to be dealing with sons that are a bit older. So, Emmanuel, over to you.
Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you so much, guys, for having me on. I've known Jim for a long time. My best friend from grade school, who's still my best friend to this day, is Jim's son. So I've known Jim pretty much my entire life. Um, Wonderful guy. Anyway, enough blowing smoke, right? Um, I do have three sons. I've got a 13-year-old boy who'll be 14 next month. He just started high school this year, and then I have 11-year-old twins who'll be 12 in January. Um, and I found this when Jim first told me about the podcast and what you guys are doing. I was very interested in that because I'm a big believer that our school system is a little bit outdated. Um, it's not reflective of it doesn't focus on the capabilities of each individual student. It's very cookie cutter. Um, which I suppose in the early years is fine. Everybody needs to know how to read, do basic math, write, etc. But I do find that there's a point where, you know, not everybody is interested in the same thing. Not everybody is, there needs to be some more focus on each individual child. But that's where the parent comes in, as well, and that's where it's our job as a dad to look at those passions that they have, look at those interests that they have, and really um, not push them, but what's the word I'm thinking of? My God.
Encourage
Um,
them, encourage
if
them,
that's the
or
word, thank
support
you. I
them,
couldn't
and
find
yeah.
encourage for some reason. And encourage them to go with that. I'm also a big proponent of teaching them things that they aren't going to be taught in school.
Mm.
Um, I just actually finally opened an investment account for each of them, RESP. Um, and I'm showing them this is buying stocks, selling stocks, this is investments, how they work. Um, and they're already showing a little bit of interest. I wish I knew about this stuff when I was young. Um, because my investment portfolio would be much different than it is now if I was a little more aware. So stuff like that, I try to teach them. I like when you talk about what did you do at school today, and of course 9 times out of 10 it's I don't know, nothing. And I'm like, nothing. You did nothing. Why are we sending you to school? And then they start reaching. Oh yeah, we did this. Oh yeah, we did that. And I still try to do that. It's a little like pulling teeth a little bit, so it's hard to be consistent on that. For sure, because after a while you're like, yeah, yeah, I know, you did nothing, and lunch was great. Um, right.
Yep.
But definitely, I like to talk to them every day. I have them half the time, so I have shared custody with their mother. So we have like a 3 day on, 2 day off, 3 day on kind of system. Um, and I know their mom is very involved in their education as well and encouraging them as well. But things like I asked about their failures. I saw this once, and about this woman I saw on social media. Someone said, my dad always asked, what did you fail at today? Which sounds like it. Why would you bring that up? Um, but the father would turn around and go, well, the fact that you failed means that you tried, and that's important to kind of so they can resonate with that idea that it's okay to fail. That's how we learn. As long as you're trying, as long as you're putting in an effort. And I thought that was a great little tip
Hmm.
myself, and I try to bring that up. What did you fail at today? Oh, my son just did cross country and he couldn't finish it. You know, just wasn't for him. And I said, okay, you tried your best. He goes, yeah. That's all I've ever asked for them, right? I always say the same thing. I'm like, as long as you tried your best. If you get a C, you get a C. But if you tried your best, that's what matters to me. Um, I'm a adult with ADHD. I learned about my ADHD because my oldest son was diagnosed at 4, which normally doesn't happen, but he was so severe ADHD the doctor's like, oh yeah, he definitely has it. And one of my twins also has ADHD. So another thing we talk about very openly and very honestly about is mental health and you know the tools that they can use to help overcome some of the struggles that come with ADHD, as well as some of the powers that come with ADHD and how to use those to their benefits as well. Because there are some great benefits to ADHD as well. So trying to focus on that. So we're very open and honest about mental health, ADHD, depression, things like that, which opens up a very honest dialogue, and I think it makes them comfortable in knowing that there's nothing wrong with me because I have ADHD, but here are some things that I need to do that maybe my classmates don't, you know, stuff like that. See, I can ramble all night.
Those are really great ideas, things that, we didn't talk about in our podcast. They're really, really
Yeah.
important, and I really think they're great ideas that would really help other dads. I like the encouraging your son's passion. That's important because it's hard to find for some people it comes naturally. Other people like I put my son in a lot of different things so he can figure out, is it swimming? Is it karate?
Right.
Is it scouts? Is it like, what the heck
And
is it?
and if
Right?
and if that's what you have to do, exactly. Uh, I know all my son's strengths and what they're interested in, things like that. One's a little bit more creative. One's very, analytical and kind of brainy. Um, so it's like, yeah, focus on those passions. As a child myself, I got the opposite in school. I always share this story because as an adult, I look back and I think how ridiculous it was back then. Um, but when I was, I think, 7 or 8, all I wanted to do was be a rock star. That's all I wanted to be. That was my dream. I wanted to be a rock star. I started playing piano, started getting involved in music, and I just wanted to be. I loved Kiss, the band. I loved Rush. I want to be on stage. That's what I want to do.
I'm glad
And
it worked. I'm glad it worked out so well for you, Emmanuel.
yeah, did it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
different
I'm
kind of.
here on a break
Come on
from
now,
touring the
Emmanuel.
world.
Come on now, Emmanuel. You were a different kind of rock star. You are.
Well, that's true. That's true. But my, excuse me, sorry, I'm just overcoming a cold here. Sorry. But my point was, my grade school teacher, who your son also same grade school music teacher, actually called my parents in to meet with them to talk about how unrealistic it was for me to want to be a rock star. And now that I look back, I think that's the most ridiculous thing that a music teacher of all teachers
Yeah.
Yeah.
is going to sit there and tell an 8-year-old, no, you can't be a rock star. That's not feasible. That's even if it's true. Yeah, it's 1 in a million, of course. But I look back now and go, really, you're going to take me to a different direction that I'm passionate about? There's a million other careers in music. I always joke, little Timmy's probably not going to be an astronaut either, but everyone's okay with him having that dream, you know.
Mhm.
Um, so I think, that's one thing that I've taken with my kids is definitely encourage whatever passion they have because I know what it's like to have your dreams crushed, basically. At 8 years old, I was like, "What do
Yeah.
you mean I can't do that?" But I love this. I,
Yeah.
I, I love everything about this. I started writing music at 13 years old, 12, with Mike
Wow.
actually, with your son. I still have the notebooks. Every once in a while, I show your son Jim the old notebooks from when we were 12, writing all these lyrics for songs that are ridiculous now, but still they're great memories. But yeah, encouragement is huge because they're not going to necessarily get that at school.
Do you speak much to the your children's teachers?
Yeah, every opportunity I can. I want to be on top of it. I want to know what they're excelling at, what they're struggling at, what can I help at home. I think it is important. Report cards are great, but like Jim said, my twins are January babies. They're the oldest in the class generally. My other son, my oldest, he's an October baby. I was a November baby. We're the babies in the class. We're always the youngest one. So there is an intellectual difference. Within that classroom, big difference. Like Jim said, now it doesn't make a difference at our age, but at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's huge. So they do need
Mhm.
encouragement. And I think Jim also mentioned, people learn about reading, people learn in different ways. Well, I have twins, they're exactly the same age. And one twin was very quick to read, and the other one struggled a little bit. And it took him a while. And now that he's older, he's gotten to the level he needs to be. But initially he was a little bit behind. Um, and again, it's because everybody learns differently and everybody even within twins that are exactly the same age.
Mm.
People learn different, so it's not even just about I'm an older kid in the class or a younger kid in the class. It's just people are different. Kids are different.
Good. Okay. Uh, Linda?
Well, you've covered a lot. We had questions, but you
I
like
told you I could talk a lot.
no, but this is really, really great. I like the learning something outside of school. As an accountant, I especially like the the finance piece.
Well, that's one thing, why don't they teach high schoolers how to do taxes?
Hmm.
Why is that not a standard course that needs to be taught? Why don't they teach kids, how to maintain a car, how to do a basic oil change, how, life skills, why aren't these things taught in school? Um, and I've meant to research this, but I believe the current school system is still built on the Rockefellers who created that system. I believe I could be wrong, so don't quote me that, but I've heard that the system that we have now is based on the Rockefellers who wanted to create obedient factory workers, to work in the factories and have your 15-minute break and then your lunch and then your 15-minute break and go home. And life's changed. So we need to encourage, there's not, again, I'm rambling, but I think these are so important. In school, there's one right answer. Well, there isn't one right answer to many things. Math, you can get to the conclusion in many different ways. You can do 2 times 4. You can do 2 and 2 = 4. I mean, there's so many different ways to get to the answer. But schools are usually one answer. And what happens when you get into a real life work? You get into a board meeting and where everybody's brainstorming, thinking different ideas, different ways, thinking outside the box. So they're not teaching kids to think outside the box, and I think that's important too.
Do
Yeah,
do you do you read with your younger sons?
So when they were younger, yes, we read stories every night,
Okay.
like most dads do. I'm not a strong. I shouldn't say I'm not a strong reader. I'm a strong reader. My ADHD affects me from sitting down and reading. I find so many times I'm reading and reading, and then I'm like, I don't even know what I just read, because my mind's wandering. But I do teach them alternatives too, and that there's audiobooks out there, and I'll put them on sometimes when we're driving on a long trip. And they're like, "Why are we listening to this?" I'm like, "Well, it's a book I want to hear. This is a book. I just listened to Stephen King on writing, which is an excellent book for anybody that writes anything." And they're kind of bored in the car listening to it. I'm like, and then I'm explaining to them, this is a great book. You can learn outside of you never stop learning. So I always show them that I learn new things. I'll pick up a new hobby. I learned how to sculpt out of clay 2 years ago because I had a little interest in. Again, that's an ADHD thing as well. We pick up a lot of hobbies, but it is also teaching my kids that you never stop learning. I'm going to be 55 next month, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning every day. And the minute you stop learning, well, I think it's the minute you stop living.
Um, have you ever um, thought about, or have you ever done, and that is make a video about of you reading and maybe reading with one or more of your sons. You thought
Um,
that's a possibility, something to think about?
yeah, I mean, it's harder now, honestly, that they're older. Everything's, YouTube, everything's YouTube. It's kind of like our generation. We were just TV junkies. Now they're YouTube junkies. I mean, and again, that's another thing that I try not to be like my parents. TV didn't rot my brain like they told me to. They would. And online and YouTube is not going to rot my kids' brains. This is their future. This is their generation. This is how they're going to do things. They're going to be on screens more than any other generation. Um, so I think sometimes we're quick to go, "Oh, this is new. It's not good for you," or "Well, let's condemn AI." No, let's use AI as a tool. Let's teach them, because these are things that they're going to use and things that we can't even fathom that they're going to use in the future. So I try not to shun it. I try to, put some limits on it. I'm not always the best at that because they're quiet when they're on YouTube. But but I do try to put some limits, but I also don't, I'm not one of these, turn it off. That's it. No more screen time. They're going to be on screens their entire life. we're on screens now. Like we've had to adapt to all of this. Look at us. We're having a meeting and we're in 3 different places, right? So, and they're going to be using that technology. So encourage that technology, put limits on, healthy limits, of course. But we use YouTube. I was dating someone that had autism, severe autism, or had a child with severe autism, and they weren't familiar with it and they didn't know how to react with him. He was a little, aggressive sometimes. And I went on YouTube and we sat and we watched a bunch of educational videos on what autism is and taught them things like that so they can learn inclusion and learn that there's different people out there. So use these tools, especially tools that they enjoy, right?
Are there any specific kinds of books that your younger boys, in fact, any of your boys, I shouldn't just your younger ones, that they really like?
Yeah, like my one boy loves the Dogman series. He just loves those silly characters. Through me, they got into comic books as well. Which when I was a kid, why are you reading that? That's not reading. And now, it's anything is reading.
Yep.
It's comic books, doesn't matter. As long as they're reading, let them
Mhm.
read, right? So things like that, they do like comic books and things like that. Um, my oldest is reading a series of books now, which I'm so impressed with that he's doing that on his own. He just took it out of the library and he's really into that. So we've done something right when it comes to reading because they do. Well, 2 out of the 3 have interest. The other one's a little less interested in books, but we're trying still.
Yeah,
So,
that's great. There's quite a few books. My son used to read a various series when he was around that age, and one of the obviously Harry Potter is a big one, right? Now kids have the movies, but back then, well, the movies were just coming out when he was partway through reading the series. But and Percy Jackson and the Olympians by Rick Riordan.
I
Um,
think that's the one my oldest is currently in the middle of. Yeah.
okay, yeah, my son loved that. He
Yeah.
loved that.
He's really enjoying that. My kids with the Harry Potter's like, well, we've seen the movies. We don't need to read it. I'm like, no, that's not how it
Yeah,
works.
I know, I know. And of course, there's The Hobbit. Like we've all seen
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings, but The Hobbit was originally written for kids.
Yeah. Very
Um,
easy read the first book.
yeah, Artemis Fowl is a good one by Ewan Colfer. I believe he's Irish, an Irish writer, and it's lots of these are all books that have a male character, and lots of them to sort of say, hey, I can relate to that. I mean, your son's not going to relate to talking to fairies and meeting Olympians,
Right.
but
But any story is a connection that is relatable, whatever story that it is, whether it's lyrics to a song, whether it's a book, you know, that's why these books are so popular because they do touch on a relatability, right? Everybody wants to be Harry Potter. I wanted to be Spider-Man when I was a kid. That was my thing. I loved reading Spider-Man, and I was
yeah.
bullied in class, and I loved that character because he got bullied and was kind of a weakling in class, but then he's saving the world. So I really felt drawn to that. Big Nate is another one that my sons love. Another series that they love as well.
So that's good. You're obviously uh, your boys are obviously introduced to different kinds of books, and they're having a chance to learn to read them. Some of them, I guess, they read in paperback form, and some they read online, I guess. Am I right on that
Yeah,
one?
even early on, we enrolled them in these like Teach a Monster to Read. I think it was a website. I think that's what it was called, Teach a Monster to Read, and that was like when they were like 7 and 8, and it was a great resource. They loved it because it was very game-like, but it taught them a lot of reading and pronunciation and stuff like that. So yeah, Teach a Monster to Read online. I highly recommend as well. Not sponsored. I'm just it really helped them. They loved it. They can sponsor me if they want, by the way.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, of course. Well, Emmanuel, thank you very much for participating in this.
Thank you
Your
guys.
your boys are going to get a chance to see you online, so that's good. And hopefully, I know you work quite a bit in the field of stand-up comedy.
I do.
So I think a lot of
Which I hope my boys don't see online because it's not clean. Not yet. They can't see that.
but I think a lot of your fans will be interested to see you in this different capacity. I think this is really excellent. Well done. Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you. And
Emmanuel.
if anybody wants to follow me, Instagram, I'll just give my plug. Mellow Comedy is my Instagram. And I call myself a jackass of all trades. I do stand up, I do music, I do art, a little bit of everything, and not enough of one thing. But I'm enjoying it. And thank you guys. Thank you guys for having me on. This was as you can see, I could talk for a long time on this subject.
No, that's really great.
No, that was great.
Lynda,
A lot of great ideas. Thank you. I like things that, the technology and encouraging your son in music and all the other. It's just great to hear from a dad and encouraging other dads to try things that you have tried and been very successful at. And people should log on and listen to your comedy as well.
There you go. Thank you guys.
thank you. And Lynda, you're going to wrap us up and indicate where we're going next time.
Yep. Okay. So next week next time we're gonna talk about transitioning to secondary school, which one of your sons is in the process of doing, which is a sometimes a difficult thing, sometimes easy, depending on the situation. So we're going to talk about that next time. Send us your comments and questions. We'd love to hear from you. As you can see our website there, inspireboys@menandfamilies.org. If you want to fill in a survey, send us an email. Tell us what you think. Tell us what you'd like to hear, because we're here to help dads. So we want to talk about things that are going to help you. And as we mentioned many times, Jim has done a lot of research and written a book called Rescuing Our Underachieving Sons. So if you would like a copy, again, send us an email, reach out to Jim, and we're happy to share that with you, along with some of the early age books that Jim has written as well. So anything to add, Jim?
Just that if people want to read some of that material that I've produced, if they let us know, they will receive a copy free. No cost involved. We're happy to help. Happy to be involved. Okay, thank you very much, Lynda.
Okay, we look forward to hearing from people, and see you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.